December 7th, 1941. The sun rises over Pearl Harbor, calm and unbroken. No sirens pierce the sky, no bombs tear through the harbor, no smoke clouds the morning. Sailors sip coffee on the decks, unaware of the history that will never come. The world waits, silently. In this world, the planes never arrive. Japan hesitates, the Pacific stays quiet. The United States, isolated and cautious, continues its routine. Industry hums in factories, not for war, but for peace. The tension between two great powers lingers, but the spark that would ignite global catastrophe is missing. Without the roar of explosions, the tides of history shift. Europe fights alone against a rising Germany. The Soviet Union bears the brunt of Hitler's ambition. Japan consolidates its empire in the East, yet a shadow of uncertainty haunts every decision. The absence of one attack sends shockwaves through diplomacy, economics, and power, shaping a world never lived. Imagine a century without that decisive morning. Imagine a world where empires rise and fall in unexpected ways, where technological leaps slow, alliances shift, and the modern map looks unrecognizable. This is the story of a day that never became infamous, but whose silence echoes louder than any gunfire. Before we dive into this alternate history, take a moment to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and comment below what you think would have happened if Japan never attacked Pearl Harbor. Your thoughts could spark the discussion that reshapes how we imagine history. December 7th, 1941, a date etched into memory for the devastation it brought. But what if that morning had been quiet? No bombs, no explosions, no chaos. Sailors would have gone about their routine. The United States would have remained isolated, watching the world burn from a distance. The tension between Japan and America would linger, but the spark to ignite the Pacific War would be missing. Across the ocean, Europe struggles under the shadow of Nazi Germany. The Soviet Union fights desperately on the Eastern Front. Without American intervention, the tide of war shifts in ways we can only speculate. Japan consolidates power in Southeast Asia, expanding its empire without the fear of retaliation from across the Pacific. Every choice, every alliance, every battle changes when a single moment in history never occurs. This is not just a story about what didn't happen, it's about the ripples of silence that shape a century. By exploring this day that never became infamous, we see a world unrecognizable, full of questions about power, consequence, and fate. Imagine a history where one attack never occurred, and how drastically it could have changed everything. The morning of December 7th, 1941 dawned like any other. The sun rose over Pearl Harbor, painting the calm waters with a soft golden light. Birds chirped, sailors carried out their routines, and the harbor buzzed quietly with life. The world seemed unaware that history itself was pausing, holding its breath for a moment that would never come. Tension had been building for months. Japan's ambitions in the Pacific clashed with America's economic and political interests. Embargoes, diplomacy, and whispers of war had cast a shadow over both nations. Yet, on this morning, that shadow stretched across the harbor without igniting the fire that would have consumed the Pacific. Ships sat docked peacefully. Aircraft rested on the decks, engines silent. Drills and inspections continued as usual, oblivious to the catastrophic event that history remembers. Sailors joked, cleaned equipment, and planned their day, unaware that this calm was itself extraordinary. Across the Pacific, Japanese commanders debated their plans. In this timeline, hesitation prevailed. The carriers remained hidden beyond the horizon. Bombs and torpedoes stayed secured in hangars. The morning passed without the sound of engines roaring or explosions tearing through the harbor. In Tokyo, leaders felt both relief and tension. Relief that their forces avoided immediate confrontation, tension at the uncertainty of what the United States might do next. Without the attack, Japan turned its focus inward and southward. Strategic resources in Southeast Asia became the immediate priority. Oil, rubber, and minerals could be seized without drawing America into full-scale war. This approach promised growth and territorial gain, but at the cost of long-term confrontation looming in the future. Across the Pacific, American intelligence noticed subtle Japanese movements but lacked evidence of an imminent attack. Washington remained cautious but calm. Military leaders questioned the intent of Japan, unaware that the opportunity for a decisive strike had vanished. The absence of Pearl Harbor left a fragile peace in the Pacific. Naval crews continued training exercises, unaware that the moment that could have changed history forever had been silently erased. The island remained calm, yet the tension of delayed conflict hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. By the end of the day, Japan had gained a temporary advantage in strategy and territory without firing a single shot. The hesitation reshaped the balance of power in the Pacific, setting the stage for a war that would unfold under very different circumstances, slower, more deliberate, and filled with new uncertainties. With the Pacific calm, the ripples of Japan's hesitation spread across the world. The United States remained neutral, focusing on its economy rather than mobilizing for war. Factories thrived, producing consumer goods instead of weapons. American society continued its routine, unaware that the absence of one attack would drastically reshape the 20th century. In Europe, Germany advanced aggressively, but without American support for the Allies, Britain faced a prolonged conflict. The Soviet Union bore the weight of Hitler's ambitions alone, enduring massive losses on the Eastern Front. The balance of power shifted, alliances strained, and every decision carried even more consequence. History moved slower, bloodier, and less predictable. Japan expanded in Southeast Asia with little resistance, securing vital resources to fuel their empire. Yet, the lack of confrontation with the United States meant its empire grew cautiously. Political and military leaders understood that a single miscalculation could still provoke the giant they had chosen not to awaken. This tension defined Japan's strategy for years. Technological innovation followed a different path. Without the war-driven urgency of American industrial mobilization, radar, aviation, and nuclear research progressed at a slower pace. The global map of power, economics, and influence evolved more incrementally, leaving some regions more vulnerable and others relatively untouched. By the end of this alternate timeline, the world was shaped not by explosions and destruction, but by hesitation and patience. A single moment of restraint redirected the currents of history, leaving a century defined by uncertainty, calculated risks, and fragile balances, an entirely different global stage for humanity. Decades later, the world shaped by December 7, 1941, remains unrecognizable. Without Pearl Harbor, the United States never became the dominant global power. Its economy thrived, but military influence and international authority stayed limited. Alliances shifted, leaving Europe and Asia to navigate conflicts without American intervention. Japan's empire persisted longer, yet overextension and resource challenges grew. Southeast Asia remained under Japanese control for years, but without a decisive war against the United States, the balance of power stayed fragile. Political tensions simmered, shaping diplomacy in ways that would ripple through generations. In Europe, Germany's prolonged campaigns against the Soviet Union altered borders and populations dramatically. The Cold War as we know it never fully developed. Nuclear and technological progress advanced more slowly, changing the pace of modern innovation. The absence of American military dominance allowed regional powers to rise, fall, and reshape their spheres of influence independently. Global institutions like the United Nations emerged differently or remained weaker, unable to enforce the same order we recognize today. The modern world is fragmented, alliances tenuous, and power distributed unevenly. Economic systems evolved without the global dominance of the dollar, creating alternative centers of influence across continents. Ultimately, This world is a testament to the weight of one morning's silence. A single hesitation redirected history, proving that the events that never happened can leave the most profound mark on the course of humanity. December 7, 1941 passed in silence, yet its absence reshaped history. One day, one choice altered the course of nations. The United States stayed neutral, Japan expanded cautiously, and Europe faced a prolonged struggle. The world we know never fully formed, replaced by a reality defined by hesitation and fragile balances. Imagine a world where alliances shifted, technology progressed more slowly, and power was distributed differently. Every decision carried greater weight. The silence of Pearl Harbor shows that history is shaped not only by what happens, but also by what doesn't. If you enjoyed this journey, like this video, subscribe for more alternate history stories, and comment your thoughts. How would the world have changed if Japan never attacked Pearl Harbor? This silent day reminds us of the power of decisions, restraint, and timing. Its lessons echo louder than any explosion, shaping the world that never happened.